go ahead and get started. Again, thanks for coming to the now 15th edition of Engage with Team Daniels-Haltom. My name is Aaron Katz. I'll be the host for the evening. Just wanted to start by letting everyone know there's recording in progress. If you've seen by now, we send out highlight videos after the town halls are over, along with the town halls in their entirety for people who can't make it. So just wanted to let you all know that recording is going on. So ballots were mailed out yesterday, should be arriving soon, and it's no secret that this election, for most of us, given our age, is going to be the most impactful to date in our careers. It is imperative that when you get your ballot, you know as much as you can about what the people who are on your ballot stand for, who they are as leaders and as individuals, and who they are as far as what they will do for this union moving forward. So with that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Nick Daniels and Jamal Haltom to introduce themselves. Nick and Jamal, take it away.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks to the entire team and for everyone who's taken the time to attend as well. We know the campaigning process can be exhausting, but at the same time, it should boost everybody's energy. This is our chance to talk about who we are as a union and where we're going. And there's no better time than an election to spawn new ideas, to engage with the membership, but it shouldn't be the only place it stops. But we'll talk about that as this town hall goes on. So let's talk briefly about who Jamal and I are. I'm Nick Daniels, the NACA Southwest Regional Vice President. I am out of Fort Worth Center, but started my air traffic career in the United States Marine Corps from 1998 to 2003 to date myself. I planned on staying in the United States Marine Corps the entire time. I was out at Camp Pendleton. Unfortunately, I was injured before going to Iraq. I blew some discs out of my back. Ended up with some hardware because of it. And, life changed course and altered my direction. I never thought I would apply for the FA, but I had the opportunity, was encouraged to do so. And I applied and was hired in March of 2003. I started at Addison Tower, level 7 VFR tower at the time, a phenomenal facility. Joined, really didn't know at the beginning what a union was. Coming from Texas, it hadn't been prevalent, but quickly reminded me of the Marine Corps, of looking out for the people at your left and right, doing your same job, your same career, and your same profession, and how you could move it forward from there. Transferred to Fort Worth Center in 2005, and the White Book, for those who were around during that time, was quickly approaching upon us. Didn't really know what it meant at the time. And then when 2006 hit, I was encouraged to go and attend NACA in Washington and then run for area representative. I was the youngest person in our area at the time, and all the senior controllers looked at me and said, "This is your fight. This is your career. You're going to be the one that stands to lose the most. We got your back." And that really vaulted, kind of my idea and mindset behind how we look out for each other, how we work together. And that was an amazing amount of trust and faith they put into me. And now it's my time to repay that as they invested in me, and everybody has over the course of my career. I was an area representative, secretary for 6 years, secretary, and the vice president, and 6 years as the Fort Worth Center FAC rep. I was the alternate regional vice president, and now serving as the regional vice president. And this is my first term on the NEB since September 2021. Candidate for NACA president. And outside of that, I have a son who just graduated high school last week. He is on his path to becoming a pilot. He is currently a private pilot or finishing up and then going for his instrument rating from there. Very proud of him. And then I have a 6-year-old daughter who just graduated kindergarten. So quite the opposite spectrum, but she's definitely the one that, I would say keeps me moving, drives me forward, and never misses an opportunity to give me a hard time. And she is definitely the light of my life. So with that, I'll turn it over to my brother Jamal. And again, thank y'all for being here.
Hello. Thanks, Nick, Aaron, and everyone for attending. I am Jamal Haltom, NACA's National Training Representative. I started my air traffic career in 1999 in the Air Force. Time flies. 25 years went by pretty quickly. Did 6 years in the Air Force and then 2 years in contract towers. One in Groton, Connecticut, one in Middle River. It's Martin State outside of Baltimore. got hired in the FAA 2007, Las Vegas TRACON, transitioned from there to Miami Tower in Miami, Florida. Spent about a year there, went back out west to Vegas Tower, 2010-ish. 2011, got my first time being a NACA elected, or actually in 2010, I was elected as the secretary, or filled a vacant position as the local secretary. Around that time, midway through that next year, was asked by the FAC rep and at the time VP, he just started doing the FAC rep duties. We think this is something you should do. Did that, and then in 2012 was elected for the first time of 4 consecutive elections there at Las Vegas Tower as the FAC rep. Served as an ARVP for the Western Pacific region. Had the honor and privilege of being on the contract negotiating team in 2016. Have served in many capacities. The union, whatever is needed, I've been willing, and whatever suits me well, so that I can serve the union. Became the national training rep in 2019 and have served in that capacity since. I also, as Nick said, I have a family. My daughter is 21, so we hang out a little bit when she's in the mood. Other than that, I'm doing the work of the union. It's a privilege to do it. I have a tremendous amount of time to do it, as my life is set up that way with very little other responsibilities. So again, very happy to be here with you all. I'm currently in Oklahoma City doing my official union NACA national training rep duties, visiting the academy and addressing the enhanced CTI program. So that's why I'm a little more dressed up than normal. It just required it for the day. But again, happy to see you all.
Thanks, Nick and Jamal. Okay, so as I said at the start, this is the 15th town hall we've done, and I see a lot of names here in the audience that I saw on some of the regional town halls. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with how this works, but let me go over the housekeeping items for asking questions. We want this time to be spent giving to you for your questions, your answers, your ideas, anything that you have. Let's be respectful. We're all still one NACA family, be it dysfunctional or not. You can decide for yourself. Courtesy goes a long way as well. You can type a question in the chat. If you would, please post it to everyone. If the chat fills up and you send it, like say directly to me, it can be hard to keep track of. So just post to everyone so they can all be in one place. You can raise your hand. That function you will find if you scroll down to the bottom of the bar, it'll be right dead center that says raise your hand. You put your hand up, I'll click over, you can unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, if you're able to, please turn your camera on. It increases the engagement. Now we'll say about the mute function. Once you're unmuted, if you ask your question and then go back on mute and you have something additional to say, I won't know that you need to be unmuted again. So you can either stay off mute until you feel as though you're done speaking, or just raise your hand back up if you accidentally mute yourself and you need to come off. So there's no shortage of issues to talk about. You know how we work. Transparency. We're not here to hammer softballs over the fence. You know you have questions. Don't pull any punches. Again, we can all be respectful and courteous to one another. So this is your time, and feel free to start asking your questions.
I'll actually start with a question. Just want to make sure, because it's rare we see it at FAA. Just making sure that's Dwayne Vaughn from Potomac TRACON is the Dwayne Vaughn at FAA email. There it is. There's a trustworthy face there. Just hadn't seen the at FAA too often in there, brother. You're on mute. You want to let him talk?
I clicked on him to unmute if he wants to. Oh, he unmuted. Come on, Dwayne.
I know. I saw it on there and I was like, fuck. I was like, I'm on an FA fucking email. Like, damn it. It's probably left over from COVID. My bad.
It's all good, brother. Just wanted to make sure. In the name of transparency, there was some text messages saying, who's the FAA lurker? So you got, since we called you on, man, you got any questions, anything at PCT or anything you want to know?
No, I'm good. I was just dropping in to see what they were saying, see everybody was saying.
Okay, brother. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you, Dwayne.
Good old Dwayne.
So we're not going to sit in silence. I know there's got to be some questions. And
I'll I'll give a
what's
moment.
being asked in the break rooms, what's going on at your facility, what you want to know from us. There we go. Hanan.
Hello, Hanan. Should be able to unmute. There we go.
Let me work on the camera here
We got you.
so you guys can see me.
We hear you.
Let's see that beard.
I'm trying to get there. I can't figure. There it is. All right.
There it is. Welcome.
All right. Thanks. So, little bit of history. I asked this question in the New England Town Hall. I was really busy, so I wasn't able to follow up. And then I got into a little bit on Facebook. Also sent an email to Nick, and I have yet to get a comprehensive answer. So essentially, we all know based off of the notes, the NEB meeting notes from San Francisco, that Nick, let me see exactly what it says. RVP Daniels then moved, absent the ability to delay a decision. The NACA president will seek to extend the slate book until 2029 with the ability to reopen the CBA in 2026 by mutual agreement, given the political landscape, if it's unfavorable or favorable. That would make the decision for a mutual reopener in 2026. So with that in mind, my question is, with all of the information that's out there that shows a pathway to defeat these EOs, why would we care about the political landscape in 2026? I've shared with you guys via email, via Facebook, various different things. I think the most compelling is probably the NTEU FLRA case, where the FLRA clearly says, like unequivocally, that the president cannot amend laws. He cannot bind his subordinate agencies to not negotiate on permissive items and so on and so forth by an EO or any sort of other broad administrative edict. So I guess I'm confused. We're in a position where we're losing people left and right to the DoD. People in the CTI programs are choosing the civilian route of being a pilot over this career field. Mike Whitaker even said it during his confirmation hearing that we have to make this career field more competitive with the private sector in order to fix our staffing issues. So we need to do something that fixes our pay, our work-life balance, our maybe even benefits. Like we across the board, we have to change things in order to make this career field more attractive. And I don't see how a decision to run away from addressing this because of an unfavorable political landscape benefits any of us at any level. So I guess to summarize my question, what was behind that decision? And when you made that decision, were you aware of the plethora of cases, specifically the NTEU case again at the FLRA, when you made these decisions? And if you didn't know that information, then why not? Like, what's going on with general counsel or whatever experts you guys have from a legal perspective? Why didn't they let you guys know about this?
So Don, I'll start off with kind of recapping some of the past, and then we'll go into split over to Jamal about some of the future and where we go. Because like you said, you set it up as that was the motion being made. Let's talk about what was prefaced to that motion, and then your question that you said, because this is one of, I would say, a great source of political spin that's out there. Let's just call it what it was. It was an attempt and a setup at that time to have somebody other than Rich say the words extend a contract. Rich came to us, and what he said was, hey, the administrator has offered to extend the contract. I'm going to have to give an answer. He's going to call like tomorrow or soon. What are we going to do? And we said, well, we definitely don't want to extend and just leave it open like you guys did last time, right? You extended and you did not build in any level of mechanism for negotiations. We said we would like it where obviously the win-win scenario is if we had to extend for some reason because we're worried about the executive orders, and let's say that was the conversation in the room, was the executive orders stripping away our rights as was briefed out from the previous NEB. and it still has not been refuted, and we'll get to that in a second. All that to be said, Rich put that forward as he needed a time-critical answer. We, as a board, wanted to delay and not have to call that to question whether we extended or not, because we wanted to do our due diligence. And he said, well, we're going to have a decision. And that's where that came from. And at this point, it's irrelevant, because his direction was, absent the ability to delay, which clearly has been delayed. Now the president owns the decision of how we should move forward, right? Whether to open a contract, negotiate a contract later. This was to have somebody in the room that was Nick or a Nick supporter, and Jamal wasn't even in there, so I don't know how Jamal gets lumped in it. It put this exactly on me, but call it for what it is, that those things are that the extension, we said we will not agree to extend. We must have an ability to open. To Rich said, well, they'll never agree to a one-side opener. Well, if the agency already said they want to open it in 2026, and that's what Rich told us, then okay, the worst case scenario is let's do a mutual reopener where the intent is both parties know we're going to open in 2026, while we can fight off any executive orders if Trump is to win an election and put those back into effect. So all that to be said, it was to protect us, not to bind us to an extension. No one wants to extend a contract. I'm going to say that again. No one wants to extend a contract. What we're facing is, can or will our union be stripped of its collective rights to bargain? And will we be put in an unfair ability to negotiate in 2026? And we must exhaust all means and methods to ensure we have the ability to negotiate. And we don't have to wait till 2026 just to negotiate, but I'll set that aside to not confuse the topic. Hanan, nothing has ever been brought to this National Executive Board that says we can defeat those executive orders. No council has ever said we can defeat these executive orders. Some of what you had mentioned, and I don't know the exact case that you referenced, I'll pitch it over to Jamal. He may know or has seen the exact case you referenced, has ever told this National Executive Board that these can be defeated. And your question is on point. Why, if there's a magical recipe to defeat them, why wouldn't our president share that with the masses? Because we wouldn't have to have this discussion. There would be no question to extend, because the only conversation around it is to protect ourselves so we can fight off and find the means and methods to fight these executive orders. And at which time, previously, that yes, there had been a ruling to say that the executive orders were could be or were unlawful, and then it was overturned. And when it was overturned, then it was the executive orders have the full legalities and law in effect. We want there to be an out. We want there to be a way to win. We want there to not be executive orders that strip us of our collective right to bargain. And you're absolutely right. It should be the president's responsibility, and something that Jamal and I will do is find every means and method of every court case or any way to legislatively, LR-wise, or like you said, with counsel, to make sure that we can fight and fight the executive orders in any way, shape, or form so they do not harm our union members' rights. So a long story with a long question. However, I think it's relevant to understand that no, nothing has ever been brought forward, and all the case law that we have seen and all the research we have done shows it every time being turned over, saying the president can issue executive orders. But I want to give Jamal a chance to speak to that as well, because my answer was very long.
Well, the executive orders were enforced. We've seen executive orders from Joe Biden enforced as it related to COVID. And in fact, Mick's very determination then was, and Rich's, was their executive orders. They are in effect. In fact, the executive orders that we speak to regarding our ability to negotiate permissive subjects and all of those things were, at one point, a judge at the DC district level did say that they were unlawful. It was then overturned by a 3-panel judge, the FLRA. They said they should have taken their case before the FLRA because the FLRA had jurisdiction. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the facts that we know, but do want to tell some people things they might not have known. We were protected by the things that our CBA protected us from. We were affected by those executive orders because we were unable to collaborate on discipline, and we dealt with that for 2 years. We could not work with the agency on reducing discipline, they had to go through the process that was spelled out in the contract because they were forbidden to collaborate. So because that was not spelled out in our collective bargaining agreement, we weren't able to do that during that time frame. So to say that they weren't enforced is not true. Not only were they enforced on us, but they were greatly enforced on other unions, and they were only overturned when Joe Biden came into office, and I think in his third day in office, overturned those executive orders. If those executive orders were meaningful or fruitless, or had been told or had been shown that they were easily defeated, then other unions would not have made that a pressing issue to talk to the then president, to waste the cachet of a union, to then talk to the sitting president to overturn those executive orders in his first days. We know the first 100 days of a presidential, not campaign, but once a president is set, is one of the most important stretches of their time in office. So the executive orders are very real. Hanan, we don't get to just pick the court cases that we like and the rulings that we got. We have to look in totality. We do have lawyers. We also associate with other unions and their counsel to find out what's occurred. And to Nick's point, yes, if they were easily defeated, the president of our union should be saying that far and wide, and our membership should rejoice. If there was some magic bullet we could pull out, we should all be speaking it together. We should also all be telling the truth about what they exist now, but it's left to us. And we'll do it, despite it being a boilerplate statement that everyone tries to cast us as the people that want to extend the contract. We haven't extended a contract. In fact, the other people have extended a contract. We've never done that. Nick wasn't on the board. I've never been on the board. I helped write a contract, a very successful contract, by the way, that has improved pay, benefits, compensation for everyone that we represent, and should be built on like any other contract. The contract's an inanimate object. I don't love it. It's a thing. It's a means by which we move forward. But stripping ourselves of 77 articles just to show that we have bravado makes no sense when there are other vehicles to go about it. If President Trump gets in office and doesn't put the executive orders in place, then there we go. We proceed forward. If he gets in office and he does, but again, it's all moot because our president, Rich Santa, did not act on it. The absence of the delay, the decision is long gone. That was 2 months ago. It's long gone. It's political candy. It's a shame that our union is placed in this position. It's a shame that members like you have to spend your time doing research. It's honorable that you do. It's admirable that you do. But it's a shame that there's this level of confusion. And I want to soapbox a little bit. I'm going to stay there because we've been to over 150 facilities, and having people that have been in this union for 3-5 years say that the union is turning their back on them by not wanting to negotiate. We absolutely want to negotiate, but we have more duties and opportunities to increase pay other than just negotiation. Legislation, MOUs. There's several ways to go about that process, and none of them have been addressed. Nothing has been done by the sitting president or Mick Devine, who's the RVP of your region, except to beat their chest, print up green t-shirts and say, fix my fucking pay. It's irresponsible. What they're doing to this union is harmful. And eventually the people will have a decision to make to see which way they want to go. And we'll get the union we deserve from there. So we appreciate the question. If there's a follow-up, which I'm sure there is, by all means, we'll take it. And we thank you for coming to 2 town halls now. And we did have a back and forth on the Facebook. I talked to you yesterday via Facebook Messenger, and I apologize to you in public like I did privately. I don't like to get beside myself. I don't think we got really contentious with one another, but if it made you feel a way, I apologize for that. We're union brothers. Let's try to move forward.
No, I like robust discussion. But I think there's important things to this that haven't been said, right? So in 2018, there was the infamous case that people talk about where at the district court level, they were found to be unconstitutional, whatever the EO said is. Appeals court reverses it in 2019. The injunction placed by the district court expires October 2019. So then NTEU and several other unions then follow the instructions of the appeals court judge, which encouraged them in that decision to seek to fight it through ULPs at the FLRA, and they did. And in September of 2020 was when this decision was written by the FLRA, which obviously at that point we're months away from the Biden administration. So it was kind of moot. But I want to read something that the arbiter from the FLRA said here, because I find this to be extremely important to us seeing this in the future potentially. It says yeah.
Do me a favor, right before you read, will you make sure, will you please, and this is, out of all sincerity, will you please send us the document that you're reading from, just so we can view it ourselves when we're done? Or you can throw it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love, because again, as Jamal's point, like, we should all be finding ways to defeat these executive orders. Because then, well, unfortunately, rich and mixed political spin is gone, and we don't have to worry about any of this shit. But go ahead.
Right. So this is on page 23 if you want to look at it specifically. And this is discussing specifically section 2 of I think it was 837, so 18837 or 19837. I can't remember all the numbers. But anyway, section 6. So it says the issue is whether the president can by EO preemptively prohibit individual agencies from electing to bargain on section 7106 B1 matters, which is permissive bargaining, in any and all situations, thus eliminating an agency's discretion to engage in such bargaining. Put another way, the issue is whether the president can by EO undermine Congress's specific statutory scheme for how collective bargaining should be conducted in the federal sector. The arbitrator's answer is that he cannot. Clear as day. To answer otherwise would allow the president to effectively amend acts of Congress. So you read through here, they go over how there's precedent for them to enjoin the president and his subordinate agencies when they've overstepped, right? They have the authority to do this. And he spells that out in the first 3 or 4 pages of this decision, and then goes in and breaks down every single section of this to then discuss how the president through EO cannot effectively amend acts of Congress. Not how this works. And ruled in NTU's favor here. So again, my concern is a little bit overarching, and it's not specific. Yeah,
Hanan, if you don't mind, right? So just to stop you, that's one arbitrator's statements. That's no different than a dissenting opinion from a person that writes. If the Supreme Court says something and there's a dissenting opinion, the FLRA did not overturn or did not determine that these executive orders were unlawful. The courts made the determination. The determination exists. I hear what you're saying. We share the same opinion, but we don't get to act exclusively on how we feel, but what has been determined in court. We do know that other unions and our union were affected by those executive orders. Should we be pursuing all means to do that? Absolutely. It should be being done right now. But what happens if the executive orders are in effect? If you know this situation very well, you know that the moment that your CBA is opened, that those executive orders become the prevailing document. What this case was partially, what you're speaking about, is that they were saying, even if it wasn't open, because the NETU or NTEU had a policy where they rolled theirs over consecutively without actually doing a formal extension. A past practice becomes governing. So that past practice was then allowed, and it was saying you cannot do what the president did in that case and not allow them to actually consider it a full-term negotiation simply because it was rolled over. But if our contract, as we spoke, or I told you via email, Article 106 speaks to our process and how we either roll over, extend, or go to full-term negotiations. If we roll over, we would be under the same guise that they were under. But again, this back and forth, we can't just stay right here because there's so many people. Again, we fully respect what you're saying. We understand that there is a desire to negotiate and improve pay. We share the same desire. We are air traffic controllers. If I lose this election, I go back to Las Vegas Tower and I'm an air traffic controller. If someone can improve my pay, I would love that to occur. There is no desire for us to keep status quo. We've never kept status quo in any of the jobs that we do. We look to improve every single day. waiting until 2026 and seeing if we have executive orders that would cripple the union to be there, and determining the legality of them at that point seems to be foolish in my opinion. That's how it looks. But we'll do the will of this union. But go ahead, brother.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah, the courts said that they needed to go through the FLRA. They did after the fact, after the appeals court reversed the decision. And this is what the FLRA said. So again, I don't want to keep belaboring the point. I'm just concerned that whoever it is that our union is hiring to advise the NEB and the president is not sufficient. If we're going to enter into an unfavorable political situation, why aren't we hiring the best and brightest to help us navigate this stuff? Maybe we are. Maybe they've talked about this. Maybe they have said, this is all bullshit, right? They could have. I don't see how, but maybe they have. So that's where my question comes from. Like, what are we doing from the standpoint of experts advising you guys? Because again, like you said, we are just air traffic controllers. We're air traffic controllers that are making the sacrifice to serve the members. So what are we doing? And who are those people? And why aren't they advising us effectively in these situations?
And Hanan, I'll take that and try to capture that part of it right now. Could not agree with you more. Elected president, I can promise you, not only will we have an answer, we'll have a comprehensive answer that we be like, this is how we get better, right? We take something, we try to tear it apart, we try to find the hole in the fence, and we say, what about this? Or does this apply? We should all be seeking for an answer to whether it's being done or not. Now, as far as being advised, nobody walks into our NEB meetings and runs them or advises us other than the president of this union. No one brings us information unless the president of this union brings it, or there's a motion to like say, Rich, we want an answer on this, which you bring up a wonderful point. What is the current guidance? Can they be overcome? And what does that look like? I will take, and I know Jamal and I, when elected, because I want to speak it obviously into existence, is doing that very thing. Education is paramount. We want to be able to show our members, this is what we have. This is the operating playbook. And if we can find a better way to argue it, let's get it and go after it. We shouldn't be scared of it, and it should be shared with you. But that's what happens when information gets siloed by a president. And that's what I've seen for these 2.5 years. Information be siloed. And like you said, those resources aren't being exhausted and the education isn't occurring. If there was a way to defeat it, all 10 RVPs should be screaming it from the mountaintop, saying, we got this. We know we have a lock solid case. We're going to run together in this direction. So we appreciate your passion around it. Look forward to working with you on it. But I think your point is exactly where we are as well. We have means to defeat these executive orders. Go ahead, Jamal.
Sorry, Nick. Last to say on it, it's there's a provision in the Constitution that allows you to come before the National Executive Board when there's a National Executive Board meeting and speak. It only allows 5 minutes, and trust me, I've been limited to that 5 minutes before. When we win, we'll encourage you to come, and we'll give you more than 5 minutes to have this very discussion in front of the National Executive Board and speak to our membership. We want everyone to be on the same sheet of music. We want our members to have no confusion. We want our members to know that we've exhausted all means. We don't want anyone losing faith in this union. And that's the problem with the style of campaigning that has taken place is, unfortunately, we have a president that has played games with the membership. And I'm sorry, Mick, as a candidate for executive vice president, have played games with the membership for far too long. It's inappropriate. We appreciate your time, brother. Please stay on for the rest of the call. And if you have other questions,
I'll be here.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right, let's go over to Andrew Strunk from D10. Andrew, should be able to unmute. Welcome, brother. You had your hand up for quite a while there, but thanks for sticking with us.
What's going on, y'all? No worries, no worries. I just wanted to take a minute if it was all right. I actually wasn't planning on really saying much tonight, but that last conversation kind of inspired me a little bit. So just a quick backstory. I'm the facility rep at Dallas-Fort Worth TRACON here at D10. Nick has been my RVP for the 1.5 years that I've been the rep. I took over in January of 2023, and I had 6 whole days of VP experience when I took over as the rep. The only reason I survived that first 6 months was because of Nick and the way this Southwest region is run. So when he says education is key, he has proven that in our region over and over. Communication and just being open. When it comes to this contract conversation, for all of you who are reps of these large TRACONs, and we're at these large TRACON fact rep group meetings, March of 2023, he said it to all of the reps. Rich Sand, I'm speaking to now, said it to all of the reps in that room that our contract is up in 2025 and we're sunk. We cannot negotiate. I'm reading exactly a transcript from the exact words that he spoke. That those executive orders are still right there in the corner, will be day one, and they'll be brought out and given to us. He goes on to say that he is going to extend the contract for 5 years. Let's bring it to a little bit more recent. March of 20, that was when we were up in Chicago. March of 2024, this year. He said it again. If we have a Trump 2, there is no way we would want to open it up. We'd want to carve out for an extension. So when we talk about wanting to negotiate, I'm on the same page. I believe we need to negotiate. I think we should have every option on the table. But Rich has made it very clear in his campaign videos he wants to negotiate, but behind closed doors to the fact reps of this group, he has very clearly said that he wants to extend the contract. So I don't know what he actually stands for. So having said all of that, that's why I am 100% in support of Nick and Jamal. I think they're going to be honest. I mean, Nick has told me things that I don't like, but it's the truth. And I'd rather have the hard truth than to be lied to and appeased to. And I think that is the key to all of this. So I don't necessarily have a question. I just wanted to share that with the group and just say vote Nick and Jamal.
Brother, we appreciate you and thank you first of all, for the shout out. I didn't obviously know you were going to do that. You know, leaders are going to lead. And like you said, I couldn't articulate it any better myself, that's what our union should be about. We should have, you know, Hanan and everyone else that could possibly find a way to actually want to move this union forward rather than trying to figure out ways to say it, a word salad, and hopefully win a seat later on. We got to get back to being a union that has leadership, that engages our leaders and doesn't put you in a position to then go talk to the D10 membership about that to learn later, oh shit, that's not really what he said. And it starts confusing every single member that's out there. And it starts putting us in a very divided and fractured union that we've seen. That will come through transparency, and it will come through engaging with not just our fact reps, but our members as well, and putting the information out there. So Strong, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for your willingness to ensure that the truth is out there.
Yeah.
Well, I would add, thanks, Brother Andrew. I would add to that is just a quick editorial, right? 2007, I'm hired into the FAA, and I get hired into the White Book. I come in eyes wide open, knowing what the pay was, and I didn't know really what I was getting into. And knowing that we had union solidarity and one message was everything at that time. We're potentially facing tough times. To try to divide the union as to who wants to do the right thing for you, or to try to paint Nick and myself as people that don't want to invest in this union, people that have done it every day. I've done it every day of my time in NAC, as has Nick. And we tried to be idle. You know, all we did was run for offices. While Rich was the president and there was no election going on, we didn't undercut him. We don't do that. We didn't try to smear this union, because that's not going to help. Keeping us together, being strong, and having a union with might is how we're going to prevail. There's going to be tough times. Everything will not be rosy when you're a member of a bargaining unit. It won't be, no matter where you are. When we tout the airlines for their successes, we don't remember that it took them years to get there. We don't just get to say immediately I want it and it occur. And anyone that tries to attempt to tell you that that's how it works has never done it. It's easy for Mick to say he can print money, because he's never sat at a negotiations table. He's never moved the ball forward for this union. In fact, all he's ever done was fail union members. And I hate to have to say that, but it's the truth. The truth is what's going to get us moving forward. There are good people. Our families depend on our salaries. Our families depend on us having good working conditions. Our families depend on us being able to provide. To run headfirst into slaughter because it makes you feel good, or because it gets you a position, God help us if that's what we do. We have to be wise. We have to be smart. We got to stay together. We're not trying to fracture this union. We're trying to keep it together. I want everybody to know that. So thank you, Andrew, for being honest. And other people on here know that you're being honest. There's other reps that were in that room in Chicago, and they know you're telling the truth. They've heard them say it. And it's a shame that they're not being honest with you. So thank you, brother.
Absolutely. And if it's all right, I do have a question I'll throw out there. I think the biggest issue, and Nick, you know this better than anybody, but I think all of our facility staffing. What's the plan to get people into our buildings and to get us staffed up so we can get out of these 6-day work weeks?
The short answer of it, there's obviously extremely complicated to the longevity of it. One is we have to start making sure that everyone can see the big picture of what where we're being hurt, where we need to take advantage of, and see what the staffing of all the facilities look like. And not just going on a projected that you'll actually never reach. Is working with our INSEP regional representatives, giving that back to them and saying, okay, let's come up with a 6-month, 1 year, 18-month projection and graphic of what reality looks like for a place like D10. That's number one. And having the agency, ultimately the goal would be to work with the agency to produce the same data so they could see it. So that way when we know, oh, we're going to try to deviate D10, well, this is actually setting us back 2 years. Are you going to live with that decision? And having them not just have an every 1 month, I guess, epiphany that, oh, well, I mean, it looks good as a projection. We're hurting ourselves by continuing a projection where a method that's just run by percentages. So that's one aspect of it. The other one is then uniting the different worlds of placement and movement in nests, hardships, and especially OS selections and deviations. While we as a union don't get to bargain OS selections and deviations, we sure as hell can be a fact and data-based collaborative endeavor to say both parties are looking at all the information prior to determination and decision being made. And one of those things should be how many people have actually ever left, because not a single person has ever left D10 under the INSEP route. And it's been, like you said, 6-day work weeks. It's doing that. And then ultimately it's improving our employee movement system. Going to D10, and not that there's there's people that can do this job. It doesn't matter what level you came from. I went from a level 7 tower to a level 12 center. But when we have the main group of candidates at D10 right now, they have no radar experience because they only know one method. And that is, I'm at a level 4 or 5, and the only real option is that D10 is going to be able to select first. So I'll go there. And how many times Jamal and I have been going out and meeting with thousands of members, say, man, I would love to go to San Antonio first, but I'll be trapped there forever. What we're proposing is take our level 7s and belows and say, if you want to move to a 9 and below, we're going to do targeted moves behind you, place somebody out of the academy that's being hired. You will wait till they achieve a level of certification and then move them up from there, right? So that way they can now go to a San Antonio. We'll work on increasing, and obviously they have room to improve from their CRWG, but also working on a method called retention and throughput. How many bodies do we actually need to retain? Because if we know that that building is going to turn people over to 10s, 11s, and 12s, we can't just sit at 100% as 100, just like we can't sit at 85% as 100 of many of these facilities as well. We have to start walking into this process, start increasing that, first stripping out all the unnecessary moves because people just bidding to try to get out of a facility, placing people behind them, staffing up our 8s and 9s, and ultimately D10 start having a selection of persons that have moved through the system, well qualified, and also starting to explore bringing in Tetra for some of our larger facilities. D10, C90 are two great case examples of how Tetra can improve for them without bogging things down as well. So I know that's a lot in a little time frame, but ultimately it will be a slow and steady method, or slow and steady progress to move to that method. And like you said, we can't just shake the tree and all of a sudden see PCs fall out of it, but we cannot stay in a system that is currently designed and just keep hoping that it'll change one day. It won't change. A lot of our members will be stepped on, stepped over, and never have the opportunity to go to the facilities they actually want to, because we're stuck in a system that is antiquated and needs to improve today.
Yeah, and only I would add to that is, Andrew, I was at the academy today in a room with I think 42 people representing 35 colleges that are looking to sign up to our enhanced CTI program, figure out ways to better utilize the current CTI program. The desire to join this career field, despite what anyone says, still exists. Do we have to continue to make it more and more attractive? Absolutely, because we're competing. You know, when in the 90s there was no Google, there was no Apple, or there was Apple but not to the extent that it is. And those are the people that we need to be air traffic controllers. We need intelligent people that are career oriented, and going and having that conversation today with those CTI programs and seeing the zest that they have to join the enhanced CTI program so that we can have higher throughput. We need to also improve our success rates at our facilities by pouring into those facilities equipment, having simulators available and able to be used. Not only just available, but like I said, able to be used, having our training processes well understood, having our 3120.4 updated. And the last thing is not related to training, but it is using experts and allowing them to display their skill. We have Nicole Sarunas, Travis Schumpberger, my great friend Daniel Witt, our regional reps for INSEPT somehow aren't our CWRG implementation team reps, because we have a president that likes to go hand out jobs to curry favor. If you've already been working in the field of placement, why would you go look for a private group, your friends, to work on placement for something as important as the CRWG? The process should be building on processes that we already have, unless you don't have confidence in those people that are on the NCEP. And if you don't have confidence in those people, you need to look to replace them. Really, we just need to be more comprehensive and get the adults in the room, stop playing kid games in this all important time that we're in. We have to put people in position to make us all successful. We're stuck in the mud and we don't have to be.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we've got a question in the chat. It's from Kelsey McKendrick. Hi, Kelsey. Would you guys be open to a town hall meeting with the focus being the executive orders and the contract and the path you plan to take? I heard about a presentation from Joel Ortiz at the meeting in Costa Mesa, but I think the masses need to hear about it and be better informed.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Yes, we'll be open to doing that. B, it will be the backbone of Jamal and I being in these positions for president and executive vice president, is finding the way. And it doesn't need to be Jamal and I every time. You have somebody well versed in this, like Joel Ortiz, who is going to continue on as the regional vice president for the Western Pacific. We can bring our lawyers, to there for questions, such like Hanan's asking, and making sure our members. There's nothing better than educating even one member in a facility that can go out and speak truth to when we're all sitting around our position and we have a few moments and we're either just having a general discussion, or we're getting in that time where we're circling with misinformation and that's spreading like wildfire. And having one educated member in that facility is worth its weight in gold, and something this union needs to invest in. So absolutely, we would do that. And what's sad right now is when Joel actually brought it up to the National Executive Board, he said we all need to be briefing these executive orders. Our president said, well, Joel, would you send out the presentation? That's a good idea. Why don't you go brief it? If there was a way to defeat the executive orders, why would our president say, go brief the executive orders? And by the way, it wasn't, we all will go do it. It was an if you want. The Southwest region is briefing it up and on our fact rep call on Monday, and doing a full deep dive at our regional meeting. So our fact reps are educated before we go out to the masses and continue to talk about it. But yes, that must be done when Jamal and I are in these offices, or if you were to elect us, we'll say it that way. It's going to be education, communication, and bringing the experts to the table to have these important discussions so our members actually know the truth and not being fooled by political campaigns and just saying, pay until you're blue in the face and hoping you win a seat.
Thanks for the question, Kelsey. I think it's worth mentioning that folks don't have to wait until questions are addressed to put your hands up. You saw Andrew sit there with his hand up for quite some time while they had the discussion with Hanan. So please don't be shy. I see a lot of names in this town hall, and a lot of these people are not shy. Post in the chat, throw your hands up by all means. Again, this is what we're here for. I'll speak to this while we're waiting for any more questions or hands to go up. You may have seen posted in the chat there's a link to the jot form. It's go time for the ballots to go out, which means grassroots is as important as ever. If you would like to step up and help encourage other people to vote, to steer them where they can get information so they can make the most educated, responsible vote, consider clicking that link, filling your name out, contact information. Someone will be in touch and you can join the grassroots effort that we're making sure we have going forward. So I tap danced long enough, and here came my brother, Alex Cisneros, with his hand up to ask a question. Alex, nice to hear from you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm sitting at an airport, so I'm probably not going to turn the camera on. However, I wanted to ask you about mental health. We've spoken about mental health for the last few years, 5 years. It's been an ongoing thing. Mental health, mental health, mental health. But what would you do different than we're doing now in order to address mental health? And then I'm going to sidebar with, how do we get more access to the regional flight surgeon to have those conversations?
Yeah, usually Nick would start in answering this, but I'll start and tell you. I'll start with what we would do, what we can do differently. Having experienced this campaign, I can tell you that it exposed to me that even the strongest people, their mental health can be fragile if you are something that you really truly believe in is potentially devastating, right? This union to me matters so much, and the thoughts, myself, Joel, Nick, several members, we talk about how this whole election has affected sleep. It's affected your ability to think about anything else because of just how important it is. So knowing that every single one of us has something like that going on in their lives all the time, and also having to be perfect in the job that we do, knowing that our mistakes might end up on the news, that our mistakes could be even worse and it be something critical, or nothing that we even did could lead to, through no doing of our own, we could witness something critical. We have to be upfront and honest about the effects that mental health have on us as people generally, and then even greater on us as air traffic controllers because of the responsibilities bestowed upon us. Having leaders that go out, show the empathy, speak to it, are vulnerable, show that they are no different than the rest, goes a long way toward having our allies in aviation to join us and talking to the FAA about not just being not just being aware, but being preventive in the ways that we address our mental health. Nick has talked about having time carved out, no different than we have for pre-briefs, debriefs, or time that we have to do our our retirement seminar. Having a time that is specialized in each pay period that give you maybe 1 hour, if you need, of duty time to address mental health issues through EAP or any other means, while also still being compensated, because most of our mental health issues, if they do relate, are because of the job that we have. Seeking things like that will take us a long way toward showing our membership that it really matters to us. And the last thing I'll say before I pass it on to Nick is showing, we made improvements in the CBA in 2016 and having certain SSRIs be available to us after a process is doctors identified that we could still work after using SSRIs. And we've had one added to that list since. Is then talking about that cost and how prohibitive it is to our membership, and coming up with ways to eliminate those obstacles and roadblocks. Because if it's going to cost you thousands of dollars and you can't afford that, then we can't afford you to be working knowing that you need to address those issues. So we have to find ways to address that as a union. So Nick?
Yeah, I'll just add on. One, it's got to start with education as well. That's called the awareness piece. Leaders have to speak about this. And Alex, is so glad that you brought it up, because it will take a president, an executive vice president. Andrew has done a job, but I think Andrew's also been silenced in many occasions and not given the front, I would call it the podium to speak from in many occasions. He's back and to the left and not forward. And it's where Jamal and I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with all of you and having not only a discussion about it, but as Jamal started talking, it's got to move to prevention. It can't just be awareness. So you educate people. There was an entire panel that was just done that NACA participated in, that there are recommendations out now to move things forward. It was put out in a NACA news alert, but why aren't we briefing it to our membership of these are the things that we're going to pursue? These are the very important topics. And it was everything from peer support that the pilots use, and 4 other recommendations that were the highlight, I guess you call them the highlights of that report. But it was, I think a very lengthy document. I don't want to give you the exact number and be off of how many pages, but that report was groundbreaking for this union. And we need to talk about how we're going to continue down that road and maneuvering that way. And the other thing is something that we haven't talked about as much, right, is building that sense of community. I shared it many times. I'm not going to go into a giant sad story about it, but yes, my mom did die of suicide when I was 10 years old. I've seen this. I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it myself. My dad has dealt with mental health issues recently. And, we've tried to find ways to offer him assistance. But when you do that, there's no right answer to it. It's ultimately being bound in that feeling. You can't overcome this. But when there is a stronger, and one of the proven things is when there's a stronger sense of community and family, people tend to seek help. They tend to ask for some level of support with one another, especially when there's a level of trust. And that's something that we find imperative to build in this union again, is where there is trust in their leadership. There's unity between us, where we are not running away from opportunities to spend time with our members in the evenings at events and saying, oh man, I really want to get out of here. And can we hurry up and be done with this? That's what I hear time and time again with Rich and Mick, is how do we hurry up and go get a slice of pizza instead of being with our membership? And that's the ugly truth of it. And one of the main reasons that if we're going to sit there and complain about the very job that we're wanting to step up and do, it's going to take leaders that actually want to be there. It's going to take Jamal and Nick who don't do it just because, it's because that's who we actually are. People ask me all the time, man, do you just, naturally want to stay out to try to gain political point? I've been this person since the day I got hired. And it hasn't changed. Ask Tim Daigle, who went and visited in Gulfport the other day. And when the tower's like, is this guy just always, friendly with everyone? It's not because I'm friendly with everyone. It's because I care about each and every member of this union. And I feel it's part of who I am to look out for my brothers and sisters and use the talents invested in me to help all of you. And it's not because I'm the best at it. It's because we're all willing to step up and trust each other in it. And it takes a leader that's willing to trust those to their left and right, form I would say bond and relationships, and have the tough conversations to move us forward. So I know that was mental health kind of spun into that, but I think it's an important part of it to talk about, because when our members feel, looked after and cared for, that will truly help evolve us as well.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the question, Alex. Now, I said we've done 15 town halls. I've seen a few members before who have said that the Zoom raise your hand function is not always user friendly. I noticed that Brandon Lark turned his camera on, and I'm going to give him a chance to unmute in case that was his cue to us and he wanted to say. So, Brandon, go ahead, brother, if you got something.
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
You are. We can hear you, Brandon. Welcome.
Yeah. So I had a question. With the administrator, with these new fatigue rules, when he came out with them, he seemed to have done that, as far as I understand, through the emails we received through NACA. He did that kind of without telling NACA he was going to do it, just kind of threw it out there and did it. That was my understanding of it. I don't know if that's completely true or not, but based on that, where do you think our current relationship is with the administrator, and how would you change things or continue what we have going on with them now? Like, what are your thoughts on that type of thing?
You want to start this one, Jamal, or you want me to start?
Well, being that the administrator would be your direct counterpart, I think you should start. Right?
Absolutely. One is I couldn't tell you where the relationship is at. I can tell you what the results would have seen, and unfortunately, what believe is that right now there is an absence of a relationship between those two. Couldn't tell you how often they meet. I've heard a couple of occasions, and usually it seems to be very short comments. I think Jamal actually witnessed a conversation at one of the recent regional meetings that he'll speak about, I'm sure, here in a moment, of what he said the current relationship is like with the administrator. Listen, that's a Senate confirmed administrator. It's our job, and we don't need to, bow down. We don't need to somehow act like he is, the mighty being. We have rights and rules, and when you know those, and we're founded in them, what we can talk about is the best way to move forward. And if they are somehow going to move without us, there's consequences for that. There's consequences for not engaging this union. There's consequences for not having discussions with us in advance. But unfortunately, we have a president right now that seems to be occupied and has been since the beginning of his term with an election and with somebody going to run and setting up chess pieces to try to do that instead of just doing their job. Don't care who runs against. If I'm to win, and in 3 years from now, listen, said the same thing I said as a Fort Worth Center backer for 6 years. Somebody wants to run for the position I'm in, that's a position. That's not against me. And if you think you want to step up and do it, just be better than me. Because ultimately, I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. And if people think there's a better way to do it, I'm about that. But what the administrator will know is that he has a counterpart. That counterpart is going to be accountable to him, but he's going to be accountable to us as well. And we look forward to working with him. We want to engage in anything and everything, but it would be a very clear discussion that if there was something that happened without us, that would not happen ever again. And again, those are scars, and those scars, they don't go away. And there's going to be a way that we must address it. But I think that's a direct result of Rich's relationship with them right now, and the agency and others looking and saying NACA has turned into somebody that's not moving the ball. And when you stop moving the ball and you're not participating, or you're the only one that can do it, and you're the only face at NACA, and no one else can step up, you can't put an RVP in, or a subject matter expert, or one of our regional representatives to something else, so you can free up your time to be there. These are how people will go around us, and they'll stop going and working with us. So, Jamal, if you want to hit anything and address it from there.
Yeah, I mean, like any relationship, that when you're representing this union, your job is to run headfirst into it, and particularly when you should have an advantage over that person based on time spent. I've had 5 different people serve in the capacity of counterpart for me in my position as national training rep, and my experience is longer than theirs. So when they get put in that position, I make it my business to go to them so that they know that we together represent the interests of training. If you allow them to do it by themselves, they will. It's your responsibility to cultivate that relationship. When we said that, when we put out a press release saying that this was the administrator that we needed, and then 6 months later they're imposing on us, that tells you, Brandon, I think the answer to your question, the relationship is fractured. The relationship is not fractured in what they believe in NACA, because I'm saying this to you and the name will resonate because you're in the Eastern region. Dean Iacopelli, thank God he exists, because he's able to often fix things for us. And that's his job. He is the chief of staff for our union. But fortunately for us, he's able to use the years of capital that he's built. Our credibility is our currency. We say that all the time. We can't spend a lot of currency because we don't have the proper amount of credibility. So when you're not credible, your counterpart sees that, they start working around you, and the effects aren't just to you and your ego, the effects are to us, potentially being imposed on, or even having that time of fear where we have people trying to build schedules and figure out how they were going to take care of their family because all of a sudden they thought their schedules would change. So we have to go a long way in every job that you raise your hand to do. you got to be willing to fulfill all of the duties. And it doesn't seem like they're being fulfilled right now at the top.
And what? Oh, Brandon, I don't want to cut you off, so go ahead, brother. If you have
Oh
any-
no, I don't have anything to say. I was just shaking my head. Thanks.
Hey, thank you for bringing it up. And, I'll take that moment to pivot into one other thing is, the president obviously doesn't work all the issues at 313 FAA facilities, over 250 federal contract towers, and the list goes on from our flight service, our TMCs, our staff support specialists, our DOD controllers, FCT, and everyone associated from there. One of the important aspects is why Jamal and I have teamed next to Daniels-Haltom. Unfortunately, Jamal has been pegged for many of the things I've done on the NEB, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous of Mick to try to tie Jamal to everything that I've done, as he has not sat next to me in that meeting, and it wasn't a joint decision. I'll own everything for my record and what I've done. But the beauty of what the level of trust Jamal and I have in each other is to actually do that, is trust each other, where one person doesn't have to handle it all. Because when you have one person, you can see this in any of your facilities. You all are in very large facilities. If your FAC rep was the only person doing something, we hear it at rep training time and time again. I ran for a FAC rep because nobody delegated out the duties. Daniels-Haltom will speak with the full force and authority for this union when elected executive vice president. I trust him unequivocally. You've heard him on this town hall. You've heard his level of expertise, and he will be able to walk in a room and handle himself at any given moment, at any given time, to speak on the behalf of our membership. I do not trust Mick that way. It's half-truths. It's usually some spin. It's taking 3 words and trying to make a sentence out of it from different parts of a page, and then immediately getting overtaken in that conversation. So if you want to know exactly where I stand in the difference of how I would operate as president, is Jamal and I will be able to tackle issues together. And when I'm not there, or vice versa, we know that this union will be looked at first and foremost. Otherwise, I do not have that level of trust to put somebody in a room with a counterpart and knowing that what will be done on behalf of our membership from there.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Like I said, we've seen it all. Don't forget your cameras on. All right, we've had a few questions pile up in the. Oh, you know what? Actually, Clint, he put his hand down, then he put it up. He had his hand up for a long time before we had any questions in the chat. So I'm gonna go over to Clint, and then we'll hit the chat. Go ahead, Clint.
Hey, everybody. I'm Clint. If you don't know me, Clint Lancaster, the Alaska Region RVP. I think that, I set in on quite a few of these, as many as I can, and because I like to hear what the questions that the memberships have. But I think it's getting to a point where I feel like I need to sort of explain why I'm here and why I'm unabashedly have supported Nick and Jamal so far. And I'm going to give you some perspective because I think it's important. I've been on the board for coming up on 9 years now. I have, I went with Paul, I started with Paul Rinaldi and Trish Gilbert as president and EVP. And, I had some awesome people, Jim Marinetti's on this call. There's quite a few people on this call that I think that have perspective. But one of the things that always resonated with me with Paul and Trish was their accountability to the membership and their willingness to advocate on behalf of our membership. None of that, some of that was very much about facility visits. When I first got on the NEB, when we would go to do an NEB meeting, and as you all know, we travel around the country so that we have an opportunity to interact with our membership and have them, essentially do what we're doing here, which is a town hall. And we used to go and we would visit, and Paul and Trish would do that. And I always thought, man, that's a really good thing that we do. And then that stopped. I'll get back to that in a second. Another thing that they did was that they made the union about the union. And I think what I've seen in this, and this is a big thing for me, so I'm just taking my time. It's appalling what has happened and what's been said about what we do, what we've done. Every single person in this union that serves in any capacity, whether you're a secretary, treasurer, FAC rep, RVP, president, EVP, does this stuff at the expense of the rest of your life. If you got kids, you got everything. I mean, we all travel, we all know. And now on top of that, everybody's working 6-day work weeks. So when I see the things that are being said about, I gave you this, I gave you that, I did ATX, I gave you a 20% OJTI pay rate, I did this, I did that, that infuriates me. It should infuriate all of you. Because for the number one thing that I've seen in good leadership, and one of the things that I've done a lot of stuff with Nick and Jamal over the years, I've had an opportunity to work with them a lot on different projects. And one of the things that always come out of that at the end is this is NACA's thing. This is ATX's NACA's thing. It's not Rich Santa's gift to NACA. All of the stuff that has been done is a byproduct of the hard work of everybody on these calls, everybody in this union. And to do that, to sit there and watch somebody take credit for that, unabashedly take credit for it, right? And you've seen it. It's in the videos. It's very, very hard for me to sit here as a person where I've seen what I've seen in this union and seen the greatest part of our union, and now some of the stuff that's seen, to not sit here and tell you all that that is exactly why I sit here and support these two, and why I sit on these calls and I listen to these questions and I reach out and I talk to folks about it. You have to have leadership that's accountable to the membership. The mere fact that Nick and Jamal have gone to as many places as they've had and talked to people on their own dime, on their own time, we should be doing that as an NEB. We stopped doing that the moment Rich Santa became the president. I've never been on a facility visit with Rich. Never. Not once. And that should tell you, from that small thing, for 3.5 years as the president of this organization, I'm sorry, 2.5 years president of this organization, and not ever have taken the time to go into an actual facility and talk to the members, should tell you exactly why then the reciprocal is of, I've given this, I've done this for you. President of the union should be a byproduct of the union, should set the direction for this union, should be atop of all of this stuff, looking around, giving us direction, giving us a place to go. You can't do that when you're peering over the fence, trying to figure out who's saying bad stuff about you and trying to take credit for everything that the hard work that's been done in this. I will never see that with these two, win, lose, or draw. Never seen them do that. I don't believe they would ever do that. I think it's very important for me to say that, as I sat and I've listened to a lot of this stuff. Everybody in this union matters. Everybody works hard, and I think that the lack of acknowledgement for that is really, really frustrating. Second thing I'll bring up is the accountability piece of sitting on the board for 6 years and never saying a word about the very things now that you are advocating for as you're running. Mick Devine and Rich Santa have never, ever, ever brought up the things that they bring up in their videos and their town halls and their meetings and their emails. Never brought that stuff to this board, not once. And now that they're candidates for positions, now at the detriment, as Jamal said, of this union, though those are issues. I think that tells me all I need to know. Hopefully that tells you all I need to know. I just needed to say that because I've said on a lot of these, and I just want you guys to know why I sit here and support, because I think it's been a question about why I advocated for one person back in the before, and now why I'm in the position that I'm at now. I think unabashedly, no filter. You all know that. I appreciate everybody being on this call. I'll shut up now and listen. But I just wanted to say that I felt it needed to be said.
Appreciate you, Clint.
Thank you, Clint. All right, let's hit a few questions from the chat now. Brad Wilco asks, are you open to doing a candidate forum with the other candidates to discuss the hot topics in person?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. We tried, we offered, an offer was extended to us. We accepted, and to my knowledge, no one else accepted, because the facility that was trying to set it up reached back to us and said they had no other yeses, and they told us that they were inviting all of the candidates, to be fair. So, and John Carr was going to narrate it or be the order, and everyone knows how good he is at that. It would have been a great opportunity for the union, but they didn't take us up on that. So if someone can convince them to, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tonight if that's the case, because I look forward to a person not being able to hide behind sound bites and clips and 3-minute videos where they just get to make up or say anything they want. We actually have to sit here in this forum and take on questions from people like Hanan that are great questions, and listen to. We've listened to very unsavory comments about us and nodded, told the person thank you, and then addressed the issue. That's what it's all about. That's what being a union rep is about. It's not. You can't win it from your basement, as they say, or at least I hope you can't, because that's what they've tried to do. So yeah, absolutely. Candidate forum, debate, a jog in the park to talk about it where it's broadcast for everyone. We do anything to get the message out and be able to be juxtaposed against one another so people can see just what the difference is between myself and Mick. Mike Redmond, I can't speak to because I've never heard him, and Nick, Rich, and Justin Daly. We'd love to show the difference in this.
It's a great question. I'm going to keep going to the chat. I just wanted to mention for Brandon Lark, I tried to message you in the chat. Your hand is still up. Maybe a holdover from your earlier question. Please leave it up if you have one, and I will get to you after the chat, or lower it if you don't. So, okay. Alex Cisneros posted one as well. Brothers, we know you have gone above and beyond visiting our members at their facilities. What do you say to our brothers and sisters at facilities you have not been able to see yet? Good question.
Yeah, one is both. We'll start with that. And if you don't feel you have the information, reach out. Jamal and I would have loved to go to all 313 facilities. FAA, every FCT, DOD alike. That's something that should have been happening by our current president over the last 2.5 years, and it clearly hasn't, because when Jamal and I went, especially to many of the level 4, 5, 6s, and even many of the level 12s. Where they say, oh, well, we'll go with Jacksonville, talking about large, some of our up downs or large TRACONs, is we went to, they said, man, Rich goes to Jacksonville Center, but never stops here. Like, that is a clearly an issue for our membership. So one is, if elected, we will, Jamal and I have said, we will step in all 313 FAA facilities in our first term. We don't write guarantees that we can't do, but that is a promise that we are going to deliver on, is that one of us will be in your building. Because there should be something with that, right? There's a level of prestige and ownership when you're president and executive vice president. I don't care what the name is. When the president and executive vice president and the regional vice president and the ARVP of a union walk in, there should be, man, all of a sudden managers are in a different suit, and all of a sudden ties are on, and oh man, we're gonna, conversations and questions are asked, and all of a sudden things start getting fixed around the facility having. That shows our collective power and who we are. That shows our collective, energy, and that resonates for months on end. The president, executive vice president were just here. I mean, we could reach back out to them. You heard what they said when they were here, and I know their counterparts agree with them. There is a lot of traction that can be gained for our representatives and our members in the field with that as well. So that's something we would absolutely get back to. But the other part of the question that I want to answer is visit our website. Look at TikTok. We have hundreds of videos. If you need I think Jamal and I did a Zoom call with a housewarming. Was it a housewarming party, Jamal? The other night, I think that's when they were doing a housewarming party, and we got on a call and talked about the union for about 45 minutes and let them go back. They went right back, and they just wanted to hear, what are we doing? How are we going to move this ball forward? And it wasn't really questions about us running. It was questions about the union. You have to take that time and investment in all of them. We wish we could have been in every one of your facilities. Obviously, it's come at a great cost of, any type of time, leave, and money is another part of it. We've, thank goodness for the supporters that are out there. The amount that they put in, because when we're done, we'll have eclipsed 185 facilities right now, and still moving and trying to find ways to even visit more as this goes out. And I think that's one last thing that I want to hit there is, a lot of people think that this part is over, right? Now the ballots are in hands, and just give my final closing remarks. This is where it begins. This is the great part. And this is where you get to exercise your moment. All of it to this point was lead up. And now we get to really lean in and answer the questions with the membership as they have a ballot in hand. So, Jamal, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, brother.
Only thing to add is, I think we'll end at about 185 or in that range, facilities visited. Those who haven't, we've kept a list. Those who haven't been visited will be the first that we go to. It's not a prioritization of importance. It's just, we try to go to the metro areas and spread out the distances and cover as much ground as we can. We can only do it on our RDOs and our weekends. It can't be NACA funded. So we will, for those who have not been visited, will be visited. And that doesn't just count our FAA air traffic control facilities, our Region X workspaces, our flight service stations, our DOD, and many of the FCTs that we represent. We'll visit those as well, because it's the job of us as union representatives to do so. And we'll bring RVPs with us. It won't just be us being show ponies. It'll be the union having a show of force for who we are.
Quickly, so y'all know, we're going to the Indianapolis area over this entire weekend in a few days. Then following weekend, around the 14th, 15th, 16th, the entire DFW area at the 28th, 29th, and possibly into the 30th, if needed, the entire Salt Lake area. And then we're going to, on the July 12th and 13th, we're going to go out to some of our East Coast facilities, ZDC, Potomac, and a few others from there. Don't hold us to it. Obviously, it's a tentative plan, but that's what's on the horizon for us as far as continuing to work on this campaign and building out from there. We have some spots to hit any other facilities that we can in the interim.
Thanks, guys, and thanks again, Alex. Love the way you framed that question. Okay, we have one from Matt Scala that I think goes back to when we were Brandon was talking about the administrator. Matt wants to know, as to Nick. Nick, what sort of consequences would you impose on the administrator?
I like the word impose, since that's what happened to us. So well played there, Matt. Is imposing on them. What it would be, obviously, a very direct conversation. There's not a lot of time to, I would say, play with your food when it comes to dealing at that level. It's not, a matter of cat and mouse or game. It is talking to the administrator and saying, well, while there's a million other issues going on, from everything that the administrator is dealing with, from Boeing, staffing, the administration, and pick the level of topics, is now we have to go back and rewind the clock, and you have to spend more time with me talking about the foundation of collaboration, talking about why it's imperative to have a collaborative partner in this, the way that we're going to move forward together. Because without us, the track record is very poor for the agency. With us, it's clearly an entirely different world in getting things moved across the finish line. Putting our experts in place is not a reflection of, it's not going to be an I did this. It's we as a union have built that credibility that Jamal was just talking about. And without that credibility being out there, well, it slows us from being able to move us forward further. So I would say that would be the imposition, is now you are slowed down from doing anything else. And ultimately, we have to get back to doing business, I would say, a little bit more methodically until we're in a position of trust to move forward from there.
Matt put his hand up while you're answering his question, so I'm going to assume he would like to speak. Go ahead, Matt. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, do you think that hasn't happened? What you just described?
Well, I want to answer that. That's a question that you should ask Rich. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about what they do. This is really about what we would do. So
I get that.
That's a good question to ask Rich. So asking us hypotheticals is really something.
Well, it's not hypothetical. It's
So I'll be no, I don't think it's happened, because when he addressed us in Phoenix, not Phoenix, and hopefully someone can fact check this. When he addressed us in Salt Lake, you were there. He said he was avoiding the administrator. I think you remember that. I'm pretty sure you do. Oh, you look curious, but
I don't remember that, but that's okay.
Others,
I mean,
I'm sure that we're in the room do, because what he said very specifically was, hey, I'm trying to avoid him. I don't want to answer the question regarding the contract extension. So I haven't talked to him in a while. And then, Do you recall that now that I
That's
refreshed?
different context, but yeah, I mean,
No, it's not. He said he was
because
avoiding. So
we
let
got
me move on,
the.
and then you'll have your chance
All
to
right.
talk. So then when we were in the Western Pacific meeting, someone asked him the question: Why did the administrator impose on you, and what is your relationship? And I believe it was in Orange County, and Costa Mesa, and his answer was, well, we're amongst friends. The administrator is just stupid. He's just dumb. That's what it is, guys. That was his answer. So no, I do not believe that their relationship is improving. I don't believe it's one of mutual respect. And I wouldn't care if it didn't have an effect on the bargaining employees that I am one and also represented, right? So no, I don't believe it's happening. I don't believe it's gonna improve with Rich because I don't believe he's up to the job. And that's not personal because actually I enjoy being around Rich when we have just personal interactions. Just don't think he's good at the job he's in right now.
Well, we are in a spot now where we haven't been imposed on. So something happened and that something worked out for us.
Okay.
I do have other questions if I'm in the right spot in the queue, Aaron. But if I'm not, then I can, lower my hand or.
Okay. Sorry to see whatever you got wrapped up. All around.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. I had shoulder surgery from a snowboarding injury, but appreciate that. Yeah, so I saw some of your video, or I saw your whole video, Jamal, this morning, I think. I didn't have time to take notes to it, and I will comment on it when I get a chance. But my question, the one that I have now, I might have more for you later, but the one that I have now, based on what I remember from it, you proposed that some of the things that were proposed in the in an MOU that came out concurrently with the slate book were complexity factors for Appendix A, including a ground complexity factor for towers and a Class D multiplier. Why didn't that happen then? If it's simple and elegant and we could just do it, why didn't we just throw that in there in Appendix A in 2016?
Well, one, I didn't say that the Class Delta multiplier was associated with the MOU.
You're right, that was.
The Class Delta multiplier is something we should propose going forward. Why did the terrain multiplier? I'm sorry, I mentioned the terrain multiplier. I mentioned a MOA, or a special use airspace multiplier, and I mentioned a multiplier for acreage, or the ground complexity multiplier. And the reason those were not included in the CBA is because protracted CBA negotiations that lasted for 11 months. And we had a 12-month window written into the MOU that this would be resolved within 12 months. We already had, it's called interim in the MOU. They're identified as interim. We knew that these were joint proposals that were made by both the NACA version or NACA side of the National Validation Team, as well as the agency side. So you can't do everything in a CBA negotiation. You set yourself up to go further. There's other things that we set ourselves up to go further that were implemented. The lack of implementation is, like I said on that call, due to a lack of leadership. So it sounds like you're saying it was left on the table. It should have been done then. When we had 11 months of negotiating, that MOU was struck toward the end of it. And we thought that we had enough opportunity to include that MOU, move the ball forward, and it would carry on. We didn't apparently put the right people in position because, as I said, Eddie had it until 2018. Eddie moved on. Rich took it from 2019 to 2021, from 2021 until then. And again, 2021 until present, Mick has been the administrator of the MVT, or the lead for NACA. So what I said, and I want to be very clear, is along that way, when you see that it's not working, it's not being implemented as it was scheduled, you have to pivot. I've done that in my role several times, and in my capacity in several occasions. The 10% wasn't working right anymore. The National Training Initiative came out. The agency wanted the National Training Initiative to actually be supported, and the truth is, and unbeknownst to many, Dean Iacopelli, myself, we talked about it with Jeffrey Benson and people in the agency and said, how can we get people to be more excited about training than it was to incentivize. So you can always build on the contract. You don't have to wait. You just have to have the right people doing it. You have to have people with ingenuity, not people that say pay, 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 and never actually act on pay, pay, pay. So that's the answer.
Well, part of the framing in your video is that you have to be creative about it. And these are some of the things that we can do. Those all seem to be negotiable things. Things that have to be negotiated and not things that have to be like, maybe we could do it like this. It's not the role of the MBT. The MBT
I didn't blame the
executes.
MBT, brother. Not blaming
I know.
The MVT
I know,
did
but there's no
outstanding job.
room for creativity in the MBT.
The administrator of the MVT happens to be an RVP that says we're underpaid. He should look for ways to increase pay. That document is gold. Our employees are losing out by that document not being implemented. When the agency comes and says we can't fund Abacus, it's a perfect opportunity to not just look out for 5 centers, to say, oh, wow, let us pivot then. You can't do those things. How about these 12 recommendations, many of which do not need Abacus? We already have a traffic counting system that works right now for terminal facilities for sure. You can implement those things into that existing system or work around that. You can't sit on your hands. Matt, I think you guys are brilliant. I really do. You're the programmers. And then there's LR people. That I don't think you would consider that to be your specialty. I do consider it to be mine. I wouldn't try to program things because I'm not good at that, but I am good at labor relations. I do know when there's an opportunity to move the ball, and I don't miss when that opportunity comes. I think it was a miss. I'm just telling you, I believe it was a miss, and it's cost our members money, particularly from someone who says you're underpaid. Those were opportunities missed.
Okay. I wanted to address another point. You did mention that it has to be implemented within 1 year as part of the CBA. That was just impossible. It was, the FAA screwed up their negotiation there, saying that it was possible, and we agreed to it. They just weren't able to do it. So even though Eddie was there, he couldn't make it happen either. He couldn't make the FAA do anything. We spent an entire year going through the FAA's data source, SWIM, System-Wide Information Management, and we found holes in it, and we found that it was not reliable. We were missing hours, sometimes days of data. So when,
I think Matt. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, let me say one more
No.
thing, Matt. I love that. And if someone can look all the way back to 1998 and tell you where there was a mistake in reclass, and they are the administrator of a document that they're holding, and they can't look in that document and see where there's opportunities, perhaps they shouldn't be able to step up and be the executive vice president of this union and promise everyone pay. You have opportunities for pay. Again, I'm not blaming you.
All of those are negotiations.
I'm not blaming
everything
you.
that you suggested.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming Brody. I'm not blaming John. I'm not blaming Mike Weekly. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm telling you that there were
I don't feel blamed.
opportunities. There were missed opportunities by the very person that tells you you're underpaid to increase your pay, or at least negotiate on increasing pay based on the agency's fundamental inability to implement something that they say they were going to implement in an MOU. I've done it several times. It's not worth arguing.
Okay, so, well, sure, but negotiating Appendix A is now negotiating pay. Is now that's opening the contract. That's everything.
No, it's not, brother. It's in an MOU. But I'm gonna let Nick speak. Love you to death, man. We seem to keep having these sparring, and I want people to know when we see each other, it's always love.
Yes.
Love you to death, bro. I do appreciate you have every right to do what you're doing. That's what transparency is about. Challenges each other is how we get better. I hope your arm gets better, and I'm probably going to dominate you in fantasy football this year. So
yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But
okay,
yeah, appreciate it.
What I was going to say, Jamal covered a lot of it. I don't want to reiterate at that point. Matt, every one of those things that you said was a target, a moment of opportunity for us to go back and say, and this is what we're doing, right? This is how do we get better? How do we learn from our past? And those were missed opportunities. If, like you said, going through the swim data, you find all these holes in it. Okay, let's create an interim process instead. That's where that LR side of it kicks in. Is saying it's not a term negotiation. It's now a midterm negotiation because you're not able to do the very thing that you agreed to do. And listen, we could absolutely shoot our shot and it go nowhere, but we have to shoot our shot. And that's where Jamal and I keep saying is that's where we're trying to move this union, is not missing all those opportunities when we find there to be a different way. And listen, the way it went is where we are today. Now we have to look at how we would learn and move forward from that. So that's all I was really going to add.
Okay. I don't see the FAA agreeing to something like a 5%, increase to the TCI of every Class D facility without a corresponding change in the breakpoints and the buffers. Maybe that is something that could be done, but I don't know.
Yeah. Matt, I'm gonna stop you there, Matt, just so we can
Fine.
put you back in the queue and we can get through some other people. Appreciate it. Put your hand. You're not, you're still here.
We invited it, so I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna go back to the chat, and Kelsey had posted another question. There it is. The union and agency have set a foundation on collaboration. However, some counterparts are adversarial. Can you guys prepare fact reps for those instances? Was that something you taught in the new BRT, or I think she's referring to RT1?
So it is something that we teach in rep training. It's a fundamental piece, but there's another aspect of that, and that's it being displayed from the top down, right? And I guess I won't even say the top down because I really don't believe in that approach in the FAA's hierarchy of what they do, but our collective counterparts to be examples for our fact reps that are out there. That counterpart is myself and the administrator, and then working inside the ATO with the COO. It would be Jamal and his counterpart. And we have, every one of our reps, our RVPs, our ARVPs, and all of their counterparts to ensure that there is not a moment that we walk away from. And I think we're starting to see that, where we're finding times to say, oh man, this is traditional. Because when you have collaboration, both people have to own it. And that's where, a lot of confusion comes from at times these days when things do go traditional, because it is the agency now stating this is their change, and we're in negotiating and what feels to be like caught up, but that was the way it was always done in the past. Collaboration, when you look at the contract, is very strong. We need to ensure that the words in the contract are adhered to, and that we find ways to breathe life into that. So every time that we talk about it, it should be, was it pre-decisional? Was it, there a genuine effort to have the conversation and improve the work life and productivity of the employees? So every one of those are a target of opportunity. We shouldn't find ways to go away from it. And the very rare cases that when the agency, like with COVID, has to come up with a new policy or is doing something in different lines of business, we'll always have to negotiate those. We have a midterm process for it. But as far as teaching the fact reps should know where we are, but we also will always prepare them for a world in case we don't have a collaboration that does break down. Collaboration is road A, but we always have our law and rights as road B. And that both roads run simultaneously. It's which one do we need to execute on? A provides a source for us to have many discussions we wouldn't. Road B ensures that we're not imposed upon, run over, or that we capitulate.
Okay, thanks again, Kelsey, for the question. Okay, let's go over to Sean Howard in the chat. It's no secret that this union is divided. I have never seen an election this contentious since I've been employed with the agency, 15 years. I know both of you have touched on empowering everyone if you are elected, but what specifically do you plan to do to unite everybody, supporters of both you and those that support Rich and Mick, for this election to move us forward stronger than we are today? The union is strongest when we all band together to try and tackle a problem. Continuing as divided as we are today only serves to make us weaker.
Nick, you want to start that one, or you want me to?
I will absolutely start that. I was just giving you an opportunity since I spoke on the last one. One is understanding the actions that you do right now are very telling. We've had many Rich and Mick supporters come to events, come to town halls. They are always embraced and welcomed. whether we're having a drink, whether we're having a dinner, whether we're in a facility, or any way, shape, and form. Let's talk about what's happened the other direction. Rich Santa has said if Daniels-Haltom is to lose as executive vice president, he's going to move to have him removed as the national training representative. People that have spoke out against Rich, he has said, well, why are you wearing this wristband? That has become a great source to Mick of a conspiracy theory that exists today. We have, on the other hand, for me running for national president, if I was to run, Rich said, well, I'll have to, speak about his personal life. I'll have to go tearing into that because, he's told Jamal that because, that's part of elections. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. And it's divided because when we don't agree, I actually call that healthy. We're talking about our union. I don't find it healthy that Rich is out there threatening people's positions, that he'll keep an agenda. I think most people know that if they go in support or publicly support, they feel that there might be retribution from Rich. It's been said to us over and over. We know people were called into his office, and when being asked about positions, he would say, well, if there happened to be an election, who would you support? That is somebody not focused on being a president or being scared. I've listened to Rich's town halls or his video clips where he says, oh, Nick was trying to become the president 3 months in. It was apparent. If I'm that powerful, then just elect me. If I can walk into an NEB as my first time and you're going to blame me for everything and you're the president, I can promise you one thing. If elected president, I'm not going to blame it on somebody else of why I wasn't effective or why I couldn't get the job done or some new guy was coming in and bowling me and bossing me around. That is not a leader. That's somebody looking for sympathy. That's somebody looking for like, oh yeah, I feel bad for you about that. And just casting a level of doubt that's out there. In no way was that the case. And what we've had is very direct conversation and communication like this as we move forward. So with that being said, how do you unite? One, you display it now. Two, you go out and start educating the masses. And we're going to have to get the NEB on the page. You build a team, and you build that with trust. With trust comes tough conversations. And, I think those are completely okay. As you see here, it should be with a goal in mind of how do we make our union better. And if we can all agree on the goal, we can find the path to get there. And it takes two leaders that stand up, challenge each other, and push each other to not look at it. And Jamal and I will not go in to lop off any heads. We are not going to be looking for people who didn't support us. And I know most people feel that way because they call us in from the leadership positions and say, thank you for not putting us in that position. They know the opposite when it comes to Rich and when it comes to Mick and the direction that they'll go. And you better be on that page with them, or otherwise there may be hell to pay. That's where I lie with it. I think it will continue to manifest itself, but it's going to be getting out there with the membership, engaging them, educating them, and just being a leader overall.
I would only add to that. I think it was Mr. Howard, Sean Howard, is we won't touchdown dance when we're successful. We won't rub it in the face of anyone else. We'll go to all the membership and tell them exactly what Nick says is we need you in the fight. We need to be collective. We have somewhere to go, and it's going to take all of us to get there. I hope that every single union member votes and we win. And then that shows a message to the agency, how serious this union is. And then after that, collectively, that we all follow and go together in the direction that this union has said we need to go. We just have to be part of the team. We have to know and ensure that our members, that they are. We were mocked for saying inspire and empower. It was buzzwords and we were laughed at when it really does matter to have an inspired and empowered workforce. That's what we had back in 2007. That's how we got through the White Book. That's how we got through government shutdowns, because we stuck together. The division isn't good. And I try my best not to be part of any division. The only thing we can do that might seem divisive is sometimes you have to defend yourself. If you don't speak up, then the lie becomes the truth. So we have to do that. But my nature, Nick's nature, is to bring people together. You don't get elected 4 consecutive terms by dividing people. So I believe in that. I believe in this union, and we'll display it. we'll go about doing it that way.
Thanks, guys. Okay, let's go back to the chat. Joe Carrasco says, this is the first town hall I've gotten the opportunity to attend, so I apologize if it's been addressed before. Can you guys touch on what, if anything, would you change about fiscal responsibility of NACA dues should you two be elected?
Well, I'll start that one. It's transparency first and foremost. I don't know Joe. Joe doesn't know me. I'm a pretty frugal human by nature. I don't look to waste at all. I drive a 2004 Explorer, man. Like, I'm not a wasteful person, and I don't think this union is wasteful. I think often our membership is misled. The notion that we spent $53,000 on a ship. One, I don't have any budget such as that right now. And there were 3 regions on that boat. We could talk about that as time goes on, but really, I think your question is answered by saying, by being transparent and crystal clear with the membership about where that money goes, being able to shift if we need to redirect money because the needs of the needs of the union change, and being very crystal clear about having our members attend our events so they know what the events are for. We only get 1,200 or so people at the convention, and I would tell you that those people don't leave feeling like money was wasted on them. Broadcasting it, educating, going back after the events, showing the events, simulcasting where we can, doing the things that let our membership know that it is hard work that we do on behalf of the union, and we're not at all being wasteful when we invest back to the people that you want to continually invest in you. So, brother, I would say it's just having conversations, being crystal clear with the membership where their money is going, and I think they would be very happy with how we are fiscally. I do think there are some things we could do with the amount of NEB meetings and where they are, but you have to run a cost analysis and see, does that work? Display the cost analysis that was done. No different than when you go into schedule negotiations and you have everyone wanting to show 410s. Show them what that's going to look like, right? Show our membership what it looks like when we move our membership meetings around, NEB meetings around, and what it looks like when they're all in Washington, D.C. So we do have to be creative. We have to be honest. Most important, we have to be transparent.
Thanks, guys. Okay, let's go over to Hanan. Hanan, you should be able to unmute yourself. There he is.
Hey guys, so I have a 2-part question, a comment with the first part about fatigue. So number one, where are we at with this fatigue schedule? The last information or the fatigue mitigation schedules put out by the FAA, the last information we got was a notice from NACA. So the formal Article 7 notice of the change was issued to NACA and is now being placed in abeyance while collaborative discussions regarding the science and implementation opportunities are being held. So that's the first question, where are we at? And then the comment on that is, do you guys think that collaboration or collaborative discussions are the best way to address these things, since we're in a position, especially the facilities, like probably everybody on this call is in a situation of 6-day work weeks, where if we implement what they want, we're in the building 7 days a week. It's not going to help us from a fatigue standpoint. Furthermore, I think there were 66 recommendations in that in the I don't even know what you want to call it, the thing that was sent out by the experts, the 3-person panel or whatever. Is there any discussion about implementing any of those other things or bringing staffing into the discussion? Because obviously that's probably what contributes to fatigue more than anything else.
You want me to start there with that part, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I know
Yes, please. I don't want to get too far ahead.
Well, first, I love your question because it begs exactly. I would almost retort with, where are we at? We should have our president. This is a question for Rich. We should have more information about this. The RVPs should know where we're at. But at the same time, I don't want to give any level of disservice to the panel that's working. So here's where I know if our town halls are serving as an information flow, this is the beauty of that election, right? Because these are things that should be being discussed, and a leader as president, executive vice president would take the opportunity to say, let's make sure we get it out an update about this and where we are. So what I know today is a panel's been formed with Dean Acapelli. I think the minutes are just now coming out with Dean Acapelli, Aaron Katz, who is hosting, with let's see here,
Crampovitis, and Drew.
There's
Drew
one
McQueen.
Drew McQueen. That is who is our panel that is collaborating, right? Instead of negotiating from what it was, they are looking at not just the one set of hours that was brought in, but looking at, like you said, all of it and bringing in the fatigue experts of what does this entire package look like? Does that even include the hours? And what recommendations would come, joint recommendations would come of moving forward from there. That could or could not include those hours, but that panel would be able then to say what the parties have agreed to, and the time frame that'll be implemented, how it would be working, how it would work, et cetera from there. So I don't want to put Aaron in a bad spot of giving a national briefing because he has an entire group and team and panel that he's working with. But we will, Aaron, leave you with this is, if there is information to put out or anybody on the panel believes that there is an update for it, by all means, I think the membership would be interested in that, but I don't want to put you in that method to deliver that via this town hall and that be in an inappropriate form. So Hanan, I've given you what I have, but we will pass on the sentiment that the membership is looking for an update.
And Hanan, I would add one piece to what you said is, I was in the military and we worked 6 on, 1.5 off. If they called it 1.5 off, because in order to execute that schedule, you almost have to reverse the rattler. It's almost as if history repeats itself. The agency pre-White Book, there was a guy named Tom Cassidy, and you seem like a historian, look him up, was very happy to say, yeah, that reverse the rattler on them and see how much they hate it. They won't be able to call in fatigued. And some benevolent person came up and said, but that would only give them about 36 hours max between their shifts. And he said, okay. So this agency is not handing out gifts to us. So when we don't collaborate, when we're not ahead of it, they will do things, they will revert to who they are. Most people that go into management, not all, but most people that go into management do it seeking power. And when not checked, and that's why collaboration is so strong. Collaboration is not something they choose to do. Collaboration is something that is a contract article. They have to collaborate with us. So it's strong for us. But when we don't run toward them, you got a new person, like I said, a new administrator. He didn't read the contract. He got to doing business the way he used to because he was a previous either deputy administrator or a high authority figure in the agency. So he reverted back to what he knew. So we have to keep collaboration, hold on to it dearly. We just have to make them do it the right way, because imposing schedules like that would be crippling to our lives. Never mind the fact that most of us have set our lives up for the particular year, and it would just do uncorrectable damage to us. So what was the second question, brother?
Second part of the question is more of a hypothetical and then just an opinion. Do you guys think that collaboration is the right tool for a situation like this, right? So the agency has a statutory requirement to consult the union before they impose, right? So initially, the April 19th memo that was put out, in my opinion, was an imposition of work at that 90 days, right? Like they're imposing a schedule on us at the 90 days. So do you guys think it would have been potentially a better course of action for the union to wait that 90 days till it becomes imposed and then fight them on it and and force them into a position where now they have to reopen the whole thing and look at this from the ground up and then change the real root causes of fatigue, right? Because changing the hours or shift hours is not going to do anything. That's not even a Band-Aid. Like, right, they think it's a Band-Aid, but it's not. The issues are far deeper than that. And I just wonder if that might have given us the opportunity to address those systemic issues as opposed to getting into collaboration. Because I feel like, and this is just probably an ignorance on my part, but I feel like when we get into these instances of collaborations, let's take some of the COVID MOUs, the agency would submit an edict. We'd go into collaboration, and then we'd get some watered down version of what the agency wanted. That wasn't really perfect for us, and it wasn't really perfect for them. It was somewhere in the middle. And I just wonder if maybe in this situation, given the impact it's going to have on all of us, especially the ones of us on 6-day work weeks, if maybe collaboration wasn't the best tool here.
So I'll try to be very quick. So the back part of that, when you speak about the COVID, so what those were essentially extensions of the executive orders, and we were actually doing the impact of implementation. So what we were actually doing in that case was not collaborating. It was negotiating. They had a right, at least we accepted that right through the executive orders to implement those changes. And we did what was called I&I, the impact of the implementation. So that was not collaboration. Now, going back to this other issue, if there were just two of us, if it were me and Nick that this was going to affect, I think you play the game of let them see it fail. When there's 13,000 or so of us, like I said, with live setup, with vacations paid for, with daycare already accounted for, with dates with the spouse, with time with the kids already earmarked, I don't think it's something that we could play the game of, oh, well, let's see how it plays out after the 90-day imposition, and then we'll really be able to show the impacts of their failures. What we did do astutely at the leadership of Dean Iacopelli was make them rescind and then start to collaborate. We didn't go down the parallel track of we're collaborating with the imposition still hanging over our head. So we were able to remove that threat from the people that we represent, go down the collaborative process. And still, the beauty of collaboration is if collaboration fails, you retain your rights to Article 7 or midterm bargaining change to working conditions. So I don't think that playing it any other way would have been appropriate for the people that we represent. But I can understand how one might see that as an avenue, but it would have had far-reaching effects on our membership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. Okay, last question I see in the chat is from James, and he asks, actually segues to what Hanan was talking about. What about pushing for changing full-time to be 32 hours?
This is a opportunity to continue to build on. When the hours or whatever the recommendations are brought forward or the parties agree to, like you said, through the collaborative panels that are meeting, that is step one. But clearly there is going to be phases of this, because I think as Hanan said very well, is fatigue is not just a one size fits all subject. It is not just a one-pronged approach of, oh, if you fix this thing, man, we're not tired anymore. We do have to fix what 6-day work weeks are doing to us. Short-term fatigue, long-term fatigue, the ability for us to have more control on our schedules in getting freaking assigned overtime every single week, and then getting a sick leave letter on top of that because you didn't like the fact that out of 6 out of 7 days, you've somehow figured out that I got a pattern that I call in on occasion. Well, when I'm there at work every freaking day and I have to be sick on occasion, by the way, that's 90% of my work week, then I'm actually at freaking work. So looking at that, this is the moment of opportunity. So to answer the question very succinctly, this may be a moment, or this will be a moment where we can look at that. I think we would agree that we got to see the examples of the COVID schedules that were done, right? We have now a test case in the study to show what happens when we are well rested for the work that we do. And continuing to find, again, as Jamal said, those opportunities working in there. Now, is the American public likely running out and saying, man, give the government employees 32-hour work weeks? No, that's a heavy lift. Will the American public say, man, we cannot have fatigued air traffic controllers? And if that's a problem and this is a solution, we should absolutely look for it. That's us where we need to lean into being our own media, not shying away from opportunities to speak about our problems and issues when they arise. And that's exactly what Jamal and I'll do as president, executive vice president, is set those moments up where we can then cash in on them later on. We must tell our story to the public. We must get out in front of these issues. We need to continuously be on offense and talk about the amazing work that we do. Yes, there are real problems in the system. They must be addressed, and they must be addressed through creative measures that we have not used in the past, because clearly we're going down a path that we cannot recover from, or suddenly there's a trigger later on that says, okay, now it's over, we're good again. It's going to be a decade in the making. And yes, this is our opportunity to seek any and all methods to find reduced work week, reduce hours, anything that will alleviate our stress. Can I promise it to you? No. Will it stay on the forefront of Jamal and I's mind and ways to set it up? Absolutely. We'll look for any target of opportunity to move this union forward.
And the last piece to that is, per our Constitution, it says that we are bound to pursue a reduced work week. So, and this is going back to the person previously that asked, how do you unite? Sometimes you give credit. I do hear Rich often speak to the fact that, that we are bound by that. And if there's any legislation that's proposed to have government workers have a 32-hour work week, we would absolutely do that. But in the interim, we have to look for other ways to reduce fatigue within the workday, setting up our shifts properly, getting staffed properly so that we can account for that. But absolutely, we'll always pursue what our Constitution says we have to.
Thanks, James. Thanks, guys. So as we cross the 2-hour barrier of what has been, without question, some phenomenal engagement, hard-hitting questions, great answers all the way around. We've posted there at the end, again, where you can go to get information about the campaign, our website being top there. If you're a social media kind of person, there's our social media accounts, not about posts and likes. It's about a way to stay engaged. So when those ballots show up any day now, you make the best decision, the most educated decision on the future of our union. And with that, I'll turn it over to Nick and Jamal to close us out. We'll say goodnight.
I don't want to miss what James said there at the end before we close out. He said he was mainly talking, he says, I'm talking mainly from a position of pay to push for 32 hours. Yeah, if there was any push for a reduced work week, it would not be at reduced, pay and benefits to our membership. I just want to be extremely clear about that. It is not work 32 hours, get paid for 32 hours. It will be work 32 hours, get paid for 40 hours. And again, that doesn't mean we don't still find ways to move our pay forward from there of what we're doing. All of these things go in hand. So wanted to make sure that point was very clear as well, because we've seen it, right? We've seen narrative spun, and that's what I guess we're all kind of parlay it into closing out. We've seen narrative spun. We've seen taking a few words in a sentence and saying, oh my God, Nick and Jamal just want to extend a contract. Jamal wasn't even in the room, and yet you're trying to somehow, just to win a position, go and say that they're just extending a contract. You're preying on people's fears and misinformation, exactly the thing this union's trying to get away from. Be honest. And that's something that obviously eludes Mick in that regard. It's not a partial story, it's a total story. And when the president of our union says he doesn't have a direction and he's worried about a position, and okay, well, we're going to set up some very clear boundaries, and one of them wasn't to just extend a contract. And as Jamal laid out time and time again, and as we have laid out as a plan, we're not going to wait around. We know that it is not just an opening of a contract that moves this union forward. That is a key component and piece, and one we are not going to shy away from, and a way that we're going to push and ensure that we have a fair ability to negotiate, that we do not miss an opportunity to negotiate, and that we have an open collective bargaining agreement and move pay and many of the other concerns of our members. By the way, I'm not sure if it had been missed, or maybe it was because Mick did not get out and visit with many of the facilities. Our members have a lot of other concerns, pay including. This is not a one-issue union. That is obviously top priority and issue. We have issues with employee movement, where he's been in charge of it and missed the opportunities to move it from there. We have advocates, and as Jamal said, the opportunities to implement additional, points and different complexity factors that would increase pay. We have a multitude of issues. We have facilities not being paid correctly that we need to address and move forward from there. All tasks that Jamal and I are up for, and it's not going to just be he and I have all the answers. That will be the difference. It will be working with the experts out there, and that doesn't have to just be an RVP. Our RVPs and our NEP will know that we're going to rely on our experts that are out there, from the NVT to the regional INSEP reps, and it doesn't need everybody having an RVP as a liaison or anyone else. We have elected leaders, we have committee chairs to help us set direction and tone. And us, what we need to have is an organization that effectively communicates, a leader that is open to not having to get all the credit, and leaders that are willing to listen and give a spot, or I would say give an opportunity to get the feedback, and it not just be a one-way conversation of this is what we're doing because this is what we decided. These town halls are a perfect example of the open and honest conversation we need, because our members are thirsting for information. Just like Hanan asked about, an update on fatigue. We should be able to get on here. We should be able to have these conversations so you all can spread the information from there. So Jamal, I'll turn it over to you, brother.
I'll be brief. We're all passionate about this union. We say NACA family, and I don't take it lightly. My family is something I'm always going to be passionate about. So, stepping up to offer myself, Nick doing the same. Actually, any candidate should do it with integrity, do it the right way. You cannot mislead those that you want to lead, because eventually you'll fail them, and this union will cripple. We aren't one-trick ponies. We believe in this union, and we know that it won't be us. It'll be the collective moving us forward. We ask for your support, but again, want to reiterate, please vote in this election, regardless of who you vote for, because it matters as we go forward. We hope that you're going to cast that ballot for ourselves. We believe ourselves to be a team. And the last thing I'll say is our team is not just Nick and Jamal, although those are the initials you see. Our team is vast, our team is powerful, and our team is willing to work. And you are invited to be part of our team as we go forward. So thank you for all of your time, and thanks for the questions and comments. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.